Welcome to this video, and this video is going to be on the election, but it's actually going to be more on astrology and understanding how karma works through us. So human design is based off the planetary positions of the moment that you were born, as well as prior to when you were born. Now, astrology doesn't have the body graph. It uses a different chart. But astrology is really amazing for tracking the transits and the cycles. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each candidate for the US election. Now, I've purposely not used names. You can, find out for yourself, I'm sure, which candidate is which. But the point is not to highlight one. This is not a political video in any way. This is not, there's no views politically here. This is simply seeing a human as a vessel and then seeing how astrology, the karmic waves, the karmic tides run through us. So I'm going to be talking through the software of each candidate. So, for example, when they were born, what was their coding that they received and how could that potentially be positive or negative towards becoming the president? And then I'm going to be touching into the current energetic and karmic cycles that each candidate is going through to see if there's any access to understanding, maybe there's that cycle for this one and maybe there isn't for that one. Or you can have a guess of how karma may play out before it actually happens, looking at the cycles. Now, a metaphor for this would be, let's say you're a surfer, okay? And I'm predicting how well you're in a surf competition, how well your surfing is going to be, okay? Now, if a wave comes, if I know what wave is coming, how good the wave is, how easy it is to ride, what the setup of the wave is, what the wind's like, what the temperature's like, what the weather's like, all these things, I could, someone could semi-predict, okay, I feel like this person's going to get a good score on this wave because look how perfect the wave is. It doesn't mean that person is going to get a great score. It's just life setting up for the potential. It's giving that karmic wave, that karmic cycle, the possibility. On the other hand, if we saw a wave coming in and it was this massive wave and the water was choppy and it was massively dumping down, we could potentially predict, okay, it looks like this person really might struggle on this wave and might not get the best score. There's a chance that person gets the best score ever. But the likelihood of that is not as much. So we can predict the cycles, we can predict the karma that's coming through, much like waves are coming through. But it's still the surfer that needs to ride the wave. Yet every month, every day, every year, we personally receive energetic cycles. And then collectively, there's larger cycles. Countries have larger cycles. United States of America has been over the last few years, and it still really is in its Pluto returns. So around 250 years ago, United States was founded. Pluto takes around that time to go round. So that means that it's currently going through a complete rebirth, transformation. It's interesting because projectors came into the world 1781. We go through our Pluto returns in 2027, which is the year that's prophesied to completely change the world forever. And projectors are the guides of the future. So if you're watching this and you're not a projector, that's fine. We're going through the candidates. If you're watching this and you are a projector, then just know that the software within you, the codes within you, why you came here is very, very deliberate, and most likely you have been and will continue to go through rapid transformation that can look challenging at times, can feel challenging, but overall, life is in a way stripping back the layers of conditioning that we received in this generating world to project a new frequency onto the planet, because the world's completely changing, and for good reason. We can look out into this world and see that it's not doing too well. It's not based on the best values and principles at this stage. So life is going to be shaking things up a little bit and reorienting, and projectors will be the guides of the future. Now, saying all that, I wanted to preface that because now I can go through candidate A and I've got candidate B. So there's two people that can be the president of America for the next 4 years, and in a few days we have the election. So I'm going to be going through what each candidate, when they were born, what was their energetics, and then what they're currently going through now. And we could see, maybe one has a slight potential of, maybe life is the waves are maybe more favorable for one, or, not so favorable for the other. So it's very interesting. I do this a lot with people in the public eye, because you can really see what waves are coming through for them, and then you can see that play out in front of our eyes, and it's quite fascinating. This is like it's really all written in the stars. So let's begin with candidate A. So the moment that this person was born, some of the key things that we can see is going to be North Node, and so the direction is right conjunct the sun. So there's this real sort of illumination of the direction, the North Node of this soul. Now it's in Gemini, it's in the 11th house, so it's to do with communication, it's to do with connections, it's to do with community, the 11th house, so moving out into community. So this soul's purpose, all the way many years back, was that was written into this code. Another thing is ascendant is conjunct Mars. So there's this sort of fiery nature to this soul. Mars is, it can be aggression, it can be masculine, it can be fight or wars or these things. And the ascendant is how this person's received. Who are they moving forward into life? So there's this fiery Mars element that comes through. Not only that, it's in the first house and it's in Leo. So the first house is like me, I, so it's like coming through strong. And then Leo is the lion. So it's almost like, look at me. And there's this very big power coming through. If you were to meet this person, you would feel it, or it would be quite strong. Another thing that is sort of interesting is Eris is opposite Neptune, directly opposite Neptune, within 1 degree. So Eris is the female warrior in a way, but it can be the female goddess of war or discord, and that's opposite Neptune. Neptune is spirituality, the unseen realms. So this could be, it does indicate potentially in the unseen realms there is some spiritual depth in some way. There's something going on here between the unseen realm connected to this feminine fiery essence. And it's just coming back to this sort of fiery nature, this strong energy coming through. And we can see here as well, Uranus is right next to the North Node, conjunct the North Node. So Uranus also gives that real shock and awe, and it can ripple through, and it's this energetic lightning bolt in a way. So this candidates a couple of things that jump out here. Now if we go to this time period, so November 2nd currently, we can look at a few transits that this soul is going through. Now transits are just like what I described. It's like what waves are coming in for this soul to catch in a way. So if we look at this, there's definitely some interesting things that jump out, because we have some really big waves coming in to do with the North Node and to do with the midheaven specifically. And the North Node is the direction of life, and the midheaven is up and out into the public eye. So it's interesting that that's happening right now, which in a way makes sense because it's happening, and this is quite astrology's and human design is they're profoundly I wouldn't even say accurate, because that's is mathematics accurate? I think mathematics is mathematics is, and astrology and human design is. It's beyond accurate. It's actually the way the energetics work. It's profound. So we can see here Uranus is conjunct the midheaven of this soul. So that happened in May 2024, and it'll go to April 2025. So this is a real energetic sort of pumping into being seen in the public eye. Now, if we go to the North Node, this is a fascinating one, because we're coming up, we're right on the election. If I just move forward a couple of days, or we're right, Jupiter is almost exact on the North Node. So if there's metaphorically a positive wave that this soul would be catching when they're vying to be president, and it's right at this moment in time, Jupiter going over the North Node would be a very positive wave to catch, So that's definitely some positive energy for this soul, that it's just lined up karmically, perfectly here with Jupiter exact on the North Node. That began August 2024, and it goes all the way through to May 2025. So Jupiter is obviously a positive energy, but it's bringing an expansion to the North Node, to the direction of this soul. At the same time, the North Node of the world is exact on Eris. So it's exact on this sort of female warrior energy, once again further highlighting the direction of the soul, the North Node of this soul. And directly opposite, we have the South Node conjunct candidate A's Neptune, which is spirituality. So there's some really big things playing out here, that when I looked at this for the first time, I was definitely like, wow, there's definitely decent amount of support for this person at this time. If they're surfing and they're wanting a 10 out of 10, there's some pretty good waves lining up for them to get that. Now, another thing is Chiron sextile the North Node. So Chiron here, which is the world's Chiron, is exact sextiling 60 degrees the North Node. Now, once again, that's just like perfectly touching on the direction of this soul. So this specific transit, Chiron is a core wound. So if it was Chiron square or conjunct the North Node, that could be challenging. Sextile brings in a way a positive flavor. So opportunities or doors opening. So that is another interesting thing. Now, astrology you can't predict with certainty because, as I said, there's karmic waves that roll through, and you just don't know how it's all going to play out. Yet you can see the waves, and you're like, okay, you can make a semi prediction. Okay, there's definitely support here for this person, which is interesting. Now, you could also look at this though in a way of like, okay, there's a lot of direction, there's a lot of north node, there's a lot of things hitting, and that could also potentially be a profound shift into a new direction. Although it would seem more likely that this is really supporting this soul at this current time. If we went back a year ago or 2 years ago, these things aren't happening. Jupiter isn't on the north node. It's lining up very deliberately and very specifically at this time. So that is candidate A. Now, if I go to candidate B, and this soul, when they were born, this is their chart. So a couple of things that are interesting here. North node conjunct the ascendant in Gemini. So also communication, the first house. So there's this, strong voice coming through. The mind, can be quite sharp, intelligent, and the direction of this soul is very connected to how this soul's being seen, the ascendant. So that is very interesting. Now, the 10th house is often seen as the public eye, so moving up out into the world. Now, Chiron, this is the core wound. So there's a core wound here with this soul, that there's a wound in the public eye. So that is interesting, and it's opposing directly opposite Uranus, Pluto, Venus. So there's some really strong energy here to do with family, 4th house, and 10th house, public eye. And it's strong because Chiron is opposite Pluto, Uranus, Venus, which are huge placements. So this could be, for this soul, maybe the home life, there's some real pull in the home life, and potential challenge coming out into the world. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. That just means there's this real almost tug of war happening, karmic waves happening between all these planets. Now, Sun opposite Moon as well, directly 27 degrees Libra, 27 degrees Aries. They're directly opposite. So that means that there's a lot of subconscious dynamics happening here. A lot of things that would be playing out unconsciously. So there is a depth to this soul that maybe is deeper underneath the surface than actually what's seen. Then we've got some, this is similar to candidate A, we've got some, strong energy, some fiery energy, and that comes through Leo. So Mars is in Leo in the 3rd house. So Mars being, that fiery masculine, can be war, taking action, is in Leo. And Leo is like, look at me, the lion. So the way this person takes action can be strong, can be direct. And that's what you would, in a way, expect. Any soul that's going to be vying for the position of becoming president of the United States of America is going to have to, carry a decent amount of weight to simply survive, the projections, survive the stress, everything that's going on. It's probably very hard to imagine what that would be like. Then we've got Moon. So the moon is in Aries, and so that's also this fiery, this is the emotions of me, of I. This is, it can be very direct, very penetrative. The sun is here. So the sun's in Libra, which gives an element of, looking at all sides in a way. And yet it's also in the 5th house, which is Leo. So it's got that real Leo. Leo's connected to the sun. It's like the king. It's like, or the queen. It's like that energy. And then the last thing I want to point out here is Saturn and the midheaven. So this is interesting because Saturn is a bit more of a constrictive energy. So it holds things back, and the midheaven is the direction and moving up out into the public eye. If Saturn's right next to the midheaven, it means that this soul may have to work harder for positions in that way. They might have to, it might take longer. They might have to really grind and, go through a lot of trials and tribulations. They'll feel the constriction. So that's interesting as well, because we've got, Chiron and Saturn, like the core wound and a constrictive energy that's, sandwiching in how this soul is coming out into the world. Now, if we go to the transits of candidate B, let's have a look at some of the main ones here and see what waves are coming in at this time, this specific time. So Saturn, as I said, the more constrictive energy, is conjunct Chiron. So it's, that would be like a choppy wave. That would be a challenge. Chiron being the core wound, Saturn really highlighting the core wound, highlighting the challenge, something internally maybe. And it's not only that, like as we saw, Chiron's opposing all these planets. So there's this real strong constrictive energy happening. Now, that's not necessarily a negative thing. A metaphor for that could be the diamond in the rough. People with Saturn energy sometimes go through a lot of trials and tribulations, but through grinding and hustling and receiving challenge after challenge after challenge, that's how character is built. That's how strength is built. So it's not specifically saying that it's just, horrible news, but there's definitely more challenge here. Now, this was April 2024. This began where Saturn was touching into the core wound, Chiron, and it goes through till January 2025. Another transit is Uranus conjunct Jupiter is here. So this is like expect the unexpected. So there's a big expansion, a big, Jupiter's like, and then Uranus is coming along. So it's really going to be shaking things up. This was also April 2024 and it goes through to March 2025. So yeah, that would be, that can probably represent, the nervous system of what this soul's going through, and the lightning bolts that are coming through, and there is these big, expansions, and then it's like, contraction and core wound and challenge, and then expansion and then contraction. So there's this dance playing out, I'm sure, within the psyche of this soul, that they're going through these expansions and then also these big constrictions and contractions. Now, another thing that's happening is, we've sort of already mentioned it, but Saturn, as it conjuncts Chiron, it's also opposing all of these three planets. So this happened from March 2024 to January 2025. So there is a real constrictive, challenging energy. Now, this could play out in two ways. There could be this real challenge, but a few of these, as I've mentioned, really release in January 2025. So there could be this opening and this release as Saturn moves off these planets and opportunities open up after that. But currently, there's real challenge, real grinding, and Saturn is really hovering over this soul in multiple directions, pushing and pulling on different things. And then another interesting transit, the last one, is going to be Pluto. And Pluto is squaring Mercury. So if we move forward, let's go like here. So this will be January. It's 1 degree, squaring 1 degree Mercury. So that's exactly 90 degrees. But this came into play March 2024, and it goes all the way through November 2025. So this is power through the voice, but it's also real challenge through the voice, and challenge how this soul is communicating and how they're being received. And they will have to adapt and maybe learn new ways of communicating to be received. And Mercury, their way of communication and their mind is in Scorpio, so it's a deep aspect that this soul has. And then Pluto's directly squaring that. So yeah, it's to be expected. There's some big transits going on for both candidate A and candidate B. I would say candidate A has a bit more of, the waves that are coming in are a bit smoother, and candidate B has a bit more constriction, a bit more choppy waters. You could extrapolate that out to mean something, and do a slight prediction. These are, karmic waves that come through. And at the same time, we don't know. But we are very clear on what each soul is going through, and what waves they're having to ride. So hopefully this was, this gave some value and some insight and some understanding and some curiosity. And just that is all from me. And once again, this wasn't a political video. This is a astrological video on the karma and the waves that each of our souls go through. And you have your own blueprint. You have your own ways that the waves are coming through in your life. And it's fascinating that if we know some of these waves, it can be really supportive, and we can relax back into the waves as well, because we understand, this is the waves that are coming through. Okay, they're not going to be coming through forever if they're challenging, or also if they're perfect, let's make the most of these coming through now. And we all get different sets in a way of, if we were surfing and waves come through, and then there's a lull period, and then different waves come in and the tides move. And so yes, if you're wanting to understand about your astrology, I'll put a link below. We have a personalized astrological ebook that is sent to you with your specific transits that you're going through. And at times I do offer small recorded calls, and I pull up your specific chart and I look through it and send you the recording. So that may or may not be below as well, depending on availability. But whether you're in America or not, many blessings over the next coming days and weeks and months. And we are all going through a profound shift and change. So many, many blessings.